Hey there, and welcome back to Get Messy. I'm your host, Maddie, and today I'm so excited to chat with Emma Palmer. Emma is a DC based producer, entrepreneur, and performer that I've had the pleasure of working with in the past. I was a project manager that worked on Emma's podcast that she co hosts with her mom, The Good Dirt, which dives into everything about sustainable living. This episode was so fun. I knew that Emma and I would be able to gab about anything and everything together. And Emma is such a creative and vibrant person. She's good at so many different things and has so many interests and passions. And she's one of those people that actually puts her money where her mouth is and makes a lot of her passions and interests into businesses rather than just keeping them hobbies. We dive into how she runs these said multiple businesses. She recently founded Bright Holler Productions, which helps mission-driven people and projects tell meaningful stories through film, audio, and digital media. And she co-founded Lady Farmer with her mom, which was their solve for the sustainable slow fashion space needing their aesthetic to be seriously broadened. And then Lady Farmer kind of pivoted more into the storytelling and lifestyle mission of what it means to live sustainably, which is how the Good Dirt podcast came to be. Emma and I chat about how she manages these multiple businesses with an 18-month-old, how therapy, money concerns, and the desire to lead a team helped Emma reframe what growth means, and how she decided to channel that into building her own business rather than chasing a corporate job. The creative career realities of uncertainty, dry spells, self-advocacy, and learning to take swings without over-identifying with outcomes, some financial mindset shifts that she's made as an entrepreneur, and what Emma is learning to trust about herself. Plus, what she's excited about next, songwriting, see if she really does like so many different things, and she's very good at so many different things, and what she's still trying to figure out, like scaling her production company. Also, Emma was an actor when she was growing up, and I loved how we discussed the evolution of dreams from when she was younger to how she still is evolving with her dreams now as an adult and as a mom, and how performing is something you can always come back to. Without further ado, please welcome the delightful Emma Palmer. Emma, it's so good to see you. I cannot wait to catch up and hear about all the things. And to kick us off, you're a creative, you're an actor, an entrepreneur, a producer. You're located in Washington, D.C. You founded Bright Holler Productions, where you help mission-driven people and projects tell meaningful stories through film, audio, and digital media. You also founded Lady Farmer, a sustainable lifestyle brand alongside your mom, with whom you host the podcast, The Good Dirt. You have so many different flavors, I think, in the roles that you play in being a creator and actor and in the different businesses that you run. What does a typical day or week look like as you try to balance these numerous responsibilities and roles?
It's a great question. And I do, as we were just chatting about, I do have an 18-month-old. So ever since, I guess, 18 months ago, it's looked a lot different than I would have answered that question before. And also, the other thing I'll preface before I just kind of tell you what it looks like, I guess, is that I'm constantly in search of like the regular or predictable schedule as much as I can, because I do, as maybe you or your listeners might relate to, like as creative people, we do both like thrive with structure, but also like too much structure can feel too constraining. So it's this constant balance. So first question is constantly in search of a typical regular schedule. Not sure that there is one. Second thing I'll say is really revolves around my toddler's childcare. So we, and this is might be helpful for other moms out there, we have found ourselves in an ideal situation with a nanny share, which means there's a neighborhood nanny who a few different families pay a pretty like solid hourly, like it's affordable to us, but I would feel badly if I was paying someone else just this to watch my child. But because all the families pay her the same amount, then she's making like really good hourly money and she's watching all the kids. And I just love it because it feels like we're paying this woman really well, but we can afford it. And she's in the neighborhood.
I'm so fascinated, Emma. I've never heard of that before in my life. That's genius.
A nanny share. Yeah.
Wow.
I guess maybe it's more common in like bigger cities. I don't know, because it kind of requires like a lot of families in similar situations. So it's like similar age kids and then kind of similar like willingness to, what they want out of their childcare and what they can pay. And so maybe just in higher concentrated areas, it's more common, but
Which would make sense, but I feel like childcare is obviously the most difficult thing, I feel like, for any family, especially when you're a new mom, to be like, okay, I have multiple jobs and businesses that I'm running. And like, I love my baby, but like, I need help. I can't do full time, like mom 24/7 and that and then, like, I think most families too, whether it be just so incredibly expensive or finding someone who could fit all of your exact needs, and then you're worried, is that person gonna leave? So I've heard so many horror stories around this exact thing, and I'm like, "What a genius idea."
It works really well for us. Some things that are probably why it works so well for us is we're not the host family. So there's a family that hires this woman full time. Like she's fully on their, I think they have her on payroll and everything. Like she's there like 40 hours a week. And it was their idea. They were like, we want more kids in here so that basically she can make more money because we only have a certain amount we can pay her. So we don't have to host, which is really helpful. We have another family that does that. And then because she has that full-time baseline with the other kids, it's very flexible. So like we can only afford up to a certain amount a week. And so that's like a certain number of hours. I think for us it's like 20 hours or maybe like 18 or something. So we have him there for 18 to 20 hours a week. Usually it's a regular schedule, but this is what's so great about it because it's just like a neighbor and a lovely lady who I have on text. If I need to like change around our hours or drop him off or pick him up at a different time or pick him up early, I can do that. And especially in a city like DC, a lot of the daycares are just like you have to pay the full amount anyways. Obviously you can pick up your kid whenever you need to or whatever, but it's just like not flexible. Even finding part-time daycare is pretty impossible because they just don't need the market really isn't there because enough people need the full-time childcare and probably make enough money to where they can afford the full-time childcare, so they don't need to provide the part-time thing. Anyways, the part-time thing is huge. The flexibility is huge, and the fact that we are just like one of the partner families and we don't need to like host it makes it really doable for us. So I would suggest, if this sounds like a helpful thing for anyone else, get together with your friends who have similar age kids and it's like a total win-win for everyone, I think. I mean, I'm just so like all in. I think our nanny makes like 60 or $80 an hour or something like based
Heck
on
yes.
yeah,
Oh my I'm
I
thinking back
know.
to my old nanny days when I made, like, $15 an hour for, like, 3 kids that I'm
I
responsible for, like,
know.
their survival.
But it just makes me so happy that we can like, pay good money while also having it be affordable for us, which is crazy. Anyways, okay, answering your question. So when he's with Mariana, I kind of structure my week around that. So on Mondays, I have him there all day. And then like Tuesdays and Wednesdays, usually I just take him in the morning, which is like his main play time because he mostly naps in the afternoon.
Okay.
So Mondays, I have like a full work day. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, I get my work done in the mornings and then I go pick him up and then he naps. So I can usually get most of a full work day, Tuesday, Wednesday. My mom lives locally. She's only like 30 minutes away. So she comes on Thursdays.
We love Mary.
And
We love
we love
Mary.
Mary. She's extremely helpful. I don't know what I would do without her. I will say, I don't think I get a ton of work done on the days that she's here, but that doesn't mean she's not helpful. It's just that we're both distractible. I probably should just like leave the house when she's here because we just both get caught up in stuff. And then Fridays are kind of like either I'll go out to her house because my parents live on a farm. So I mean, when it's not like the Arctic outside, it's really lovely to go spend the day there and they can both watch Johnny while I can work from there. But honestly, it's a lot of just like cobbling together free time based on the childcare. And I feel like I have a pretty good grip of it. Like I definitely have a good 20 hours a week of work, but then I also have this like second wind thing at night. Like after he's in bed, I'm like have like 2 more hours of work in me. I try not to do that all the time because I also like have a husband I like to spend time with. But yeah, that's mostly how it goes. And my full day of work on Monday is kind of when I try to stockpile all my like admin and calls. And then if I have any like in-person meetings or lunches, I'll try to do those on like Tuesdays, Wednesdays. But yeah, that's most of the structure that I have.
I mean, I feel like that, like you said, there's that need for some structure, but also flexibility. And I feel like that gives you enough to kind of cover all of your bases with like your personal responsibilities, your professional responsibilities. And I'm so eager, Emma, to dive into like more about some of the businesses and maybe like what that looks like. So, to my knowledge, Lady Farmer was your first business. I was like, you're very entrepreneurial. It might have not been the first, but to my knowledge, it's the first.
I think so. I could think about it for a second, but I think it was my first business.
That's why I was like, I'm like, you own multiple businesses. So I'm like, there might have been preludes to Lady Farmer, and you made this company with your mom. You founded it with your mom. What problem were you and your mom trying to solve by starting Lady Farmer? And when was the moment you guys both decided, okay, this isn't just like something we're kind of like hobbling together as maybe a hobby, but we're actually doing this as a business?
So the problem we were trying to solve was very specifically slow fashion. Like we were both interested in sustainable fashion, but we didn't at the time we started it. It was 10 years ago now. There weren't a lot of brands that we felt we would like buy the clothes that were doing the sustainable slow fashion thing. That has since changed so much, which is really fun for me because I love shopping. But at the time, when you thought of like sustainable fashion or slow fashion, it was a lot of like kind of 10,000 villages, like really colorful like wraps and sarongs and like things like that. That's like, that's fun. That's kind of a vibe. Like if that's your vibe, I'll wear that sometimes. But it felt like in order to wear sustainable fashion, you had to like have this certain look. And if that wasn't your look, then it was like, well, you're shit out of luck, I guess. So that's kind of what we went into it with. We're like, why can't we make clothes that we would wear that are also, we pay the workers well and they're sourced ethically and all of that. So that's the problem we were trying to solve. So we went into it fully as a clothing brand and we didn't know anything about like designing clothes or making clothes, but we were confident that we could learn as we went along, which is what we did. And honestly, we realized that it was like a real thing and not just a hobby. Mostly, I think because I didn't have a job at the time. And so I was like, I'm going to make this my job. So I was really motivated to make it my job. So it took a couple months before I realized that it would be a long time before I actually made any money. So I had to start picking up other jobs kind of as I did it. I think I was living with my parents at the time. And like I mentioned, they live on a farm. So there's a lot of like wineries and things around where they live. So one of my jobs in the early days was like, I think I managed the tasting room at the winery next door. And then I think I worked retail for some of it. Just a lot of like random jobs like that I could also keep doing Lady Farmer in the meantime. And then the way that we decided we were going to launch our clothing line was through Kickstarter. So that really helped us sort of focus our efforts and figure out what we were going to do because Kickstarter is really like a marketing campaign. And so we worked on that for like a year that led up to the making the clothes. And then after that whole process, the Kickstarter and making the clothes and delivering on the clothes, we actually realized that we didn't love manufacturing clothes or a manufacturing business in general. And what we actually liked about it was more the lifestyle aspect of it and talking about why we were doing it. So that's sort of where the podcast came from. And then also at the same time, other brands were catching on and starting to do more sustainable fashion, slow fashion, sustainable stuff. So we decided, why don't we highlight other brands that are already like, we don't have to make everything ourselves. We can like highlight brands and tell this story. So that's sort of really how that kind of evolved. And then you didn't ask this specifically, but we were kind of all in on Lady Farmer and the podcast pretty much up until I had the baby. And then we really slowed down for about a year. And then about 6 months ago, we went like full hiatus on the podcast, The Good Dirt. But we are gearing up to start that again. So we just sort of like hit a wall a little bit.
I mean, and how can you not? Because I've had the pleasure of working behind the scenes on your podcast and like project managerial roles, and you guys were doing a lot. Like it was a big responsibility. And I think the way you guys would specifically prep for your guests, like it was not just, okay, great, we're going to like sit at the computer and wing this. Like you guys put a lot of time and energy into how you structured the podcast, how you prepped for your guest, how you guys prepped the solo episodes you did every month. So I can imagine between a huge life change, like a child, and then trying to restructure that, you're like, we need to pause for a moment and figure out what we want this next iteration to look like. But I'm so excited personally that you guys are coming back because a lot of those conversations, and will obviously link to your podcast, were really impactful. And I mean, one of my favorites was all about your sustainable wedding. Because I was planning a wedding.
That was like around when you got married too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I was like, how is she doing? Because I thought planning a wedding was fascinating in and of itself. And then to hear how you guys did it sustainably was so cool. I loved that episode.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you guys are coming back.
Coming back. We don't know exactly. We've recorded, at the time of this recording, we've recorded 2 episodes. It's just sort of funny. We're like taking it one thing at a time. We recorded a solo thing with just us two. I think it's pretty good. We should probably just release it.
People love the solo episodes. I'm like, you and your mom have such a cool like vibe and the way that you guys relate to one another. So I'm like, it is probably fantastic. Just release it.
Okay, yeah, good. We should release it. And then we have one like interview type. It's not really where we're interviewing someone, but a listener actually wrote in and asked us all these great questions on an email. And we were like, would be such a good conversation. So we recorded that. just last week. So, and now I'm like, just like thinking out loud because, you're on our production team. So I was like, I have to figure out like, am I going to wait till we have like a few to stockpile and then release them? Or do we just sort of release? I don't know. Anyways, question marks here. We're literally in the middle of it.
In the messy middle of trying to figure out what that next iteration looks like. And while you guys are figuring this out, you also recently founded Bright Holler Productions. And I feel like it's such a fitting endeavor because it meshes your creative spirit with your entrepreneurial nature. And you and I were even emailing a couple weeks ago that it kind of was something it found you or you found it. Like it was a little bit of a stumble through it process to be like, and I have a production company. How did you decide this idea was worth your time again to be like, okay, we're taking this into the next iteration of like starting a business?
I love that question because it was literally my therapist.
We love this. Oh, yes. I love when a therapist has like the gems of wisdom that it's like, here's this whole new direction of like this next season of your life with a new business. Go. Please share. That's amazing.
To paint the picture, give it the full context. Okay, so a business kind of in between Lady Farmer and the production company that I had that ended up being like the best way that I made cash on the side was I was a French tutor for a while. So
I feel like
random, but
anyone who's a creative and also an entrepreneur has lived 1,000 lives through like the different jobs and side hustles they've had.
yeah. So the French tutoring, that was kind of a COVID project, started all online. And so that was great. And then, as we were coming out of COVID, people wanted to meet in person, which I totally get. And then I was also subcontracting for this other tutoring company. She had a spot in our neighborhood, so I could go there physically and I didn't have to deal with like rent or anything. She brought me clients and that was great. But as a creative, I don't know if you can relate. I don't love having recurring appointment times every week at the same time that I have to be at the same place at the same time every week. So that schedule soup like after a while. And also being one-on-one with someone while I love tutoring and I love kids, being one-on-one for like an hour is really draining. So I found that even though it was good money for hourly, it would like really wipe me out. So when I had Johnny, that was a great time, natural time to kind of like end that business. And then coming back online when I was ready to work again, I knew that I needed, because I have all these like little freelance things that I'm doing randomly for people. It'll be like a little project here, a little project there. Also, all of the production work that I've done for Lady Farmer over the years, it sort of clicked at some point. I was like, I should just like contract myself, kind of. Like, I haven't officially done that because I haven't figured out like how that works technically. And this was when the podcast was paused that I actually just decided to open the business. And I'm literally racking my brain. I can't remember why I was like, I just need to make this a business. I think I just needed to organize myself. And I was like, I've opened businesses before. It's going to help me with taxes. I'm just going to do it. So I had it kind of sitting there. And then, as it happens when you have a baby, sometimes there's like a cute little neighborhood church in our neighborhood. And so I started going there and I love the priests are really sweet. It's like lady priests and everybody's really cool. And I grew up going to Episcopal churches. And so I was looking for something maybe to sort of ground myself in this season of newborn life. And turns out they were looking for someone like a communications person to help with their like social media and their live stream because they had started live stream over COVID. They're having a really hard time finding someone. And I can walk. This church is like 4-minute walk from my house. I don't know much about live stream at this point, but I'm like, well, I guess I can do that. And also like social media is easy for me. So that job sort of appeared. And when I was interviewing for it, they were like, well, you're great. Your skill sets are great. We assume you have your own company or unless you like want to be on salary. And I was like, oh, I guess I do have my own company. And so I sort of figured out like, I guess I should be an independent contractor with them because it was super part-time. And I don't know, I just felt like I would have more control if I did that.
Totally. More flexibility, which is like part of that. Again, the creative inside of you is like, okay, wait, how can I do what I need to do here, like with the responsibilities, but have it where I can still have some control?
Totally. So that was my first like real like client with my production company where I was like invoicing them regularly. And so yes, it's like a job. And from the outside, it would seem like I work for them, like I'm on staff. But really, I'm an independent contractor and that's a client of my production company. And what I do for them is all things my production company like does because it's all things that I do. So I actually produce a podcast for them too because I pull from the live stream recording. I like clip out the sermons and then I'm running a podcast that way. I produce little videos and things for their social media. I do all their graphics. And then Something fun that I started doing too last year was producing in-person events because I was like, y'all need a retreat. So I made a retreat and like just all things that I love. So now I'm like, and Bright Holler Productions like brings your brand experience like off the screen and into the real life. So yeah, I can do everything.
I'm not surprised at all that you can, just like the bit I know about you, but I'm like, yeah, you're truly like great, online, in person, social media. So it started with this church. I'm so curious how your therapist comes into this.
Okay. Oh, right. Back to my therapist. Oh, also, I want to say, interjecting here, I do reference this book all the time. And I do think it's actually the reason why I started the company. But there's this book called Redefining Rich by Shannon Hayes. And we actually had her on the Good Dirt podcast.
Okay. Yes, I remember.
Yes.
Fast forward was around during that time. Yes, Shannon Hayes. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
So I read that book and prepped for that interview. And honestly, that book has like changed everything because in that book, she sort of lays out how, I guess the concept is like redefining rich, like designing your life that works for you. But she just like really makes a good case for being self-employed and making, if you are creative, entrepreneurial minded, just like making it work that way. Anyways, so I think that's why I started because I was like, well, in the book, it makes sense. And this is kind of what I do. So I should just make this a company. And then things sort of fell into place. So I'm working at this church, which is great because I have this baseline, like monthly contract that it feels comfortable for me. And then it can pay for the childcare that lets me do the work. And then I can also support my family and yada, yada, yada. So then one day at church, actually, I walk into the office and someone had brought, it was like around Christmas, someone had brought like little presents for everyone in the office and they had brought it in this Scout bag. Do you know about Scout?
No.
I'm just going to shout them out because they're a big part of my life. So Scout is this bag company and they make great bags. They're like very practical. They're like these, my mom's going to laugh. They're not like the most sustainable or whatever, but because they're plastic bags, but they're like reusable plastic bags and they're very structured. And so they're just super satisfying. They're very like Southern sorority girl. I don't know.
Oh my
Normally
gosh, I
wouldn't be
cannot
my
wait
vibe.
to look these
But
up after.
yeah, they're so cute. And their spring patterns are so cute. And I love them because they're just very useful. They make me feel organized. I'm not an organized person, but if you have a few Scout bags, you can organize all your stuff and then you just feel better about everything. Also, the woman who started the company, I know her. She lives in Georgetown. It's a DC company and her kids we all went to school together. So like I grew up running cross country with her son and I just feel like it's like a family company that I know and love, and they're all over, especially like in the Southeast, I would say. They're very popular. Anyways, someone had a cute Scout bag at church. Also, another neighbor that I know well, I went to college with, is the president of this company. So I saw a Scout bag and it really affected me. I was like, that's so cute. I just should work for Scout. Like, there's just such a cool company. And I just really need a corporate job because maybe other people listening to this podcast can relate to the feeling of just wishing you had a regular corporate job.
I feel like most creatives or entrepreneurs at some point, at least for me, it's like once every other week. I have a thought where I'm like, it would just be so
Yeah, you're like,
nice.
F this. And especially, I don't know if you're here yet. It kind of took me a while to get here, but I feel like I've gotten to the point where I'm really tired of like feeling like I don't have enough money and like I can't make the money and blah blah. And then I guess maybe because I live in a very like affluent, successful city, but a lot of people around me that I'm like, I actually like, I know I could do your job and you're making 4 times as much money as I make. This is another thing I work on with my therapist. Like maybe I just like think about money too much, but it's more like I'm tired of feeling like the exchange of my time and skills, like I do not get that back money wise, but that's kind of the basis of this like idea that I need to get a corporate job. And so I came home and I was like, that's it. I decided I'm working at Scout. So I went on this rabbit hole deep dive. I also decided to, this is so funny. It'd be so funny if someone at Scout was listening to this, but I decided that the job that they need me to do like doesn't exist. So I would like pitch them like this role that I could do for them and it would really help because like I know people there. So like I would obviously get it and it'd be fine. And so like I started like drafting this email and like figuring out how much money I would ask for and what I would exactly do. And then I sort of got in the weeds a lot and I got kind of confused and I was like, maybe I should like talk to Cam about this. Cam's my husband. And he was the first one to be like, Emma, he was like, you have this idea that it would like solve everything, but actually I think you would hate it. And he did say too, like, your work-life balance right now is like pretty good. You have enough like creativity to figure out, like, if you need more money, like you can figure out how to make more money. But like, if you go the corporate route, you're going to be like stuck in this thing that you're not gonna like. So I was like, okay, I guess you're kind of right. And that was fine. But then I also had to talk to my therapist about it. And she was the one who I told her this whole thing. And then she was like, what's missing? Like, why do you feel like you need a corporate job? Like, what's missing in your life right now? And I was like, well, I think when I think about like going into an office and like working with people and like leading a team, like those are the things that kind of came up to me. Like, I want to like guide other people and tell them, like, I'm tired of like doing everything. And that's when she was like, "Well, don't you have a business? Can't you just like grow your own business?" And I was like, "Oh."
Wait a second. Yes.
And it sort of clicked to me like, so it's funny because I'm in this funny spot where I do kind of like have this part-time job, but technically it's my own part-time
Which,
job.
like you even mentioned before, not that we're accountants giving tax advice, but like owning your own business versus being like a W-2 employee is so different for like the flexibility you have with your money.
Yes, it's true. And then also because I have the business, I have these other like little tiny contracts or like if someone wants me to help them with their website or something kind of a one-off thing, like I have a channel to do that through. So like I am doing other things. And then another thing that spurred this was another friend who works at a bigger company. They're looking for like a social media person and they thought of me. And that's actually I think when I reached out to you because I was like, am I starting a company now? And I was like, I actually don't want to manage your social media. Like I don't want to do that. But, like, I know what needs to happen, and I know enough people that do this that I feel like I could, like, contract with you and then, like, match you with someone. Those are literally the cogs that are still turning that I'm like, "Maybe I actually could do this." And even with the church job, like, technically, I could just show someone everything that I do for like, with the podcast and all the, like, online stuff, and I could pay them. Like, why is that so crazy? Yeah, that's what my therapist helped me figure out.
We love your therapist and we love your husband. He also sounds very like smart and intuitive and like knows you obviously very well to be like, Emma, let's like
We've also maybe had that convo before, so that's why he wasn't surprised either.
no, I mean, this is probably like the 800th conversation you guys have had. I'm so curious to go back a little bit, Emma, and I'm such a details person, so I love all the details you gave. And I think specifically in regards to like, I feel like the two big themes that jumped out at me as you were talking was obviously work-life balance and like what being in a corporate job where someone else kind of owns your time to a certain extent. Like my husband doesn't work in corporate, but he owns a production company that's actually based in Washington, D.C. We should talk after. I'm like, wait a second. This is so funny. I'm like, he's owned it for like 13 years. We're not in D.C. right now, but two of his business partners are still there. But he works with a lot of ad agencies where those people are full-time employees for these companies. And I hear a lot of the interactions. And that is the biggest difference between my husband and all of his business partners and these people who do similar job to what they do, but do it under, a big corporation. So work-life balance is huge. Ownership of your time is huge. Kind of building your own vision versus building someone else's vision or being like a part of them building their vision, but you still have the capability to build your own versus kind of being owned by them to build their vision. And I don't care what people say. I feel like even if you're like, I could still do the corporate job and do my own thing, you could. But like, I feel like I've done a version of that before and you get tired. I always underestimated the amount of energy I would then be spending to like help someone else build their thing that even though I was so passionate about my own, I was like, damn, I am wiped. Like I am wiped out. I need like to self-care and like refresh. And the other thing you brought up was about money, like was about money, making money, the good flexibility of like making money in entrepreneurship, but also the rub of you having so many interesting, different specific skill sets and maybe them not being valued or positioned in a way, or like you looking at other people being like, you were holding a job making 4 times as much, but the job and what you're doing is like a version of the same thing I'm doing. I might even have more skill sets and more tools to be able to do your job better. So I feel like those are just two big things that so many people who are creatives and entrepreneurs, and also like we live in a society where like you need money. You need money to survive, like to pay for childcare.
and you need more and more every day, it turns out.
Who thought, like, I know I would always like hear my parents say stuff, but then you become an adult and you're like, oh, I get it. And like a whole new realm. So I guess those are like two things that really stood out to me of what you said. And I think that those two things are like the biggest rub of the creative entrepreneur.
Totally.
I relate in a different way too, Emma, because you and I both come from a performing background. And so I started doing voiceover as like a sector of my acting 10 years ago. And it's obviously different than owning your own business because I don't know, I guess with voiceover, I'm being given audition opportunities. I do those, I help, I book work. I guess I could market myself to other people, but like the main way that I'm getting opportunities to make money is like through a different source. It's not really driven by myself making those opportunities, where being an entrepreneur, owning your own business, like you are kind of the one driving how you're marketing yourself and how you're trying to get those opportunities and then hopefully land those opportunities to make money. But there have been so many times in those 10 years where it's like this, the income. And it's not anything to do with my skill set or talent. It's not anything to do with my availability. It's not anything to do with, and like, it's sometimes I'm like, I don't know what else to do to change it besides what I'm doing.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the performing thing too, because that's like another aspect. I guess I'm not doing too much performing at this moment for various reasons, probably mostly scheduling reasons. But I felt a similar frustration with trying to pursue the performing thing because it's just so out of your hands when you're just so dependent on other people giving you work instead of being able to make your own work.
And I think that's why some of us do. Like I told you about the production company my really good friend Corinne and I had, because we were like, this sucks. Like, I don't want to wait around for the audition and then hopefully I get a call back and hopefully I'm on a veil and then hopefully I book it. It's like, no, I want to be able to, yeah, have more control over some of like the art that we're making or different opportunities. So yeah. And I guess
And you know what's cool? I've noticed even like big deal, like A-list actors do that. Like at some point, I feel like the people who really want to make work and have control over what they do, like they just make production companies. Like doesn't Anne Hathaway have one? And like Reese
Reese
Witherspoon, like,
Witherspoon, yes.
yeah,
Nicole Kidman, Charlize Theron. Yeah, no, because they're like, we want control. We want to have like our voice and our stories be heard and to not be told like, no, a bajillion who's like, we'll tell
mm-hmm.
ourselves. Yes. And I think to again, the flip side of all that too, Emma, is the time thing. I feel like that's the one thing, and your husband makes such a good point that's like the biggest difference, I think, again, of the 9 to 5 corporate job is you are essentially being paid a hefty salary for someone to own your time and be able to say, no, 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 Tuesday at 10 a.m., you are doing this every week. I don't really care if you like it or not. And you're like, okay, cool. I guess I am. Sure.
Totally.
I think we're talking to Emma about like performing and also entrepreneurship. Is there anything in regards to, you could take this question either way, either like the business side of performing and the business side of creative arts, or entrepreneurship, that surprised you the most?
Oh, yes. I don't know if this is like what surprised me the most. I feel like there's a lot of surprises, but it's what's coming up for me right now as I'm thinking about it. But I am constantly having to be reminded that like it's a constant like you going up to bat for yourself all the time. Like no one's going to do it for you. And also in the same vein, we also like get in our own ways a lot. Like, oh, well, I couldn't do that. Or like, you have to give yourself not only like do it, but like give yourself permission and just like not be afraid of the no. I just think we're so quick to be like, oh, well, that wouldn't work, or like that person wouldn't. But people are just out here doing whatever they want, obviously. You just kind of have to like remember that and just keep doing it.
I always think about like the external versus internal obstacles. And I'm like, the external obstacles are very, very clear. Like, even for performing or entrepreneurship, of like, there's so much you can do, and it doesn't mean someone's going to say yes, or it doesn't mean that you putting in all this time and effort and energy is going to equate to booking a job or having that then creative expression in the job or making the money from the job, despite all of the work that went into it. Like, that's an external obstacle. But I feel like the internal ones are the ones that take so much self-awareness to address, because like you said, it could be your fear, it could be you giving yourself a lack of permission, it could, there's so many things that can kind of become these core beliefs, and you're like, oh, I didn't even realize I'm the one stopping myself from taking that big swing that needs to be taken. just to be in the game.
Yeah, and then I guess, like, back to the, like, what's this most surprising thing is I think what's I'm surprised by is how a lot of times when you do take, like, what feels like it's gonna be a really big swing or it's gonna be really scary and you just, like, do it and it's, like, actually not that bad, and then, like, the most specific thing I'm thinking of lately is this one contract I have with the church. I will be like, "Well, I can do this and this for you, like, for this amount of money, and it'll take this amount of hours," and I was, like, fully expecting pushback or whatever, but they're just like, "Yeah, okay, fine, what? Sure, whatever you say." And I think not that that happens all the time, but I think if you're just, like, confident in what you have to offer and what you wanna charge for it, a lot of people will just take it. Maybe that's, like, a female thing too, having a hard time, like, asking what you're worth or whatever, but
Or the amount of time, I mean, I'm thinking of conversations recently too, where I've like gone over and over and over and over and over in my head about, okay, well, what if this is the response or what if this is the reaction? And like, how will I prepare and like handle it? And then it was like so simple. It was like, okay, cool. And I was like, why did I spend like 3 full days? So like in my head, having that like me to me conversation, preparing myself for like the absolute worst case scenario, which I think usually the worst, like my husband and I always joke. He's like, what's the worst case? And he's like, when does that ever typically happen? He's like, it is so rare that like the worst, like even if they came back to you and we're like, okay, like let's negotiate. It's like, you can negotiate. Not that big of a deal. Very rarely are they going to come back and be like, you're fired. Leave, never see us again. It's like, yeah,
boo.
you stood up for yourself. Gosh darn it. In talking about money, Toma, I've interviewed a lot of people who would consider themselves creatives first, entrepreneurs second. And most of them, myself included, I think they all mention some sort of financial lesson that they've had to learn in like their creative and entrepreneurial journey that they feel like they've had to learn the hard way. Did you have an experience when you think of like yourself and finances that you feel like you're like, I could have learned that lesson easier, like amongst my creative or entrepreneurial journey?
That's a good question. I'm sure that there's many. The one that's coming to mind right now, because it's sort of like tax time, I said that I was like, "Oh, shoot, I owe my accountant something," is just how much you can like, honestly, how the tax codes are like it feels like you're cheating, but, like, the tax codes are like and she talks about this in this book, Redefining Rich. They're pretty much made to reward entrepreneurs and small business, which sounds crazy because you also hear like it's hard as a small business, blah, blah, blah. But like, and it is, it's really hard. But if you sort of like just do what you're supposed to on your taxes and you like deduct things and you just kind of take good notes and account for things, you can save yourself a lot of money and you can make things work in a really creative way that otherwise just feels like you're making it up because in a normal like W-2 job, basically it's like your employer is getting all those benefits. And so you just like don't see them or think about them. So yeah, that's what I would say is like I actually don't feel like I've really like goofed up and like could have learned that a ton earlier or whatever. But I do think that it is something that I'm like continually like, oh, and it would have been helpful maybe like a few years ago. I don't know. But
That's like everything though, right? Like everything that you're like, thank God I learned it now, but like, damn, 5 years ago, this would have been really nice if I had
yeah.
learned all of this then. And yeah, to your point, Emma, my husband and I talk about that all the time, that it shocked me too to my core, like how many advantages you can have if you own a business and that those aren't available to you if you are a W-2 employee. So I find that super fascinating. And in your life as a performer, your life as an entrepreneur, there's so many like ebbs and flows. Like I was just even talking about with voiceover, where I'm like, if I look at my years and not even just financially, but like how I felt over those years and how that showed up in my auditions and my performances. Like there's so many ebbs and flows. There's so many uncertainties, mainly in the fact that again, there are some of those external things outside of your control that are part of the game and part of the package. How do you help yourself deal with the ebbs and the flows and the uncertainties?
I think a lot has changed, especially since I had a baby. So I don't think I've had a lot of like space or time to feel like the ebbs because in the space of the ebb is like this human that I'm responsible for, which is
Which has been a
crazy.
lot of flow.
Well, just a lot of it's just a lot. And I will say that having a kid, definitely not like trying to convince anyone to have a kid, but it does offer a sense of like grounding and like purpose that anyone, no matter what job you have or that you're trying to pursue, like, you could understand, like, all of a sudden it's not all about you, obviously. So it makes it a little easier. But I would say pre-kid, it was really hard because there's a lot of like, well, what even am I doing? And like, why am I doing it? And what's the point kind of stuff. And then that was COVID too. So we are collectively doing that. I think something that has gotten me through is, and I think I just kind of this is something that I maybe heard from somewhere or maybe just thought to myself when I was trying to make a decision, like whether or not to take this internship, probably like 12 years ago. I was like, I want to do this internship. I'm not sure like what direct impact it will have on my career path, but like I like this person that I would be working for. I'm interested by the work. I don't think I want to go into this work like fully and that's my life, but I feel like I have a lot to learn here. And so like it was just a very big gut thing. Like I think I'm just going to do this. And the way that it made sense in my head is like this feels like it's a puzzle piece where like by itself you don't really know how it fits in, but it does feel like it's a bigger piece of the puzzle. And so that one specific scenario really has played out that way. Like I had this year-long internship and it was like super random, but I did learn a lot and it was in Boston and that's when I met my husband. And so like it was obviously impactful in a lot of ways and I'm not doing necessarily exactly the job that I was learning at the time, but something about that situation felt like it fit into the bigger picture. So I think I do go back to that sometimes when I'm like, well, that worked that one time. And this also seems kind of random and I don't really see how it fits in, but maybe it's just like a bigger piece of the puzzle. And so same can be applied for like, if we want to say like dry spells or ebbs, where it's like, I don't know, I think you can't be productive all the time. You have to like sleep 8 hours a day or whatever. So like
The
in that in the
goal, the
larger
goal.
cycle of like the world, yeah, ideally, we all have to like sleep, we all have to hibernate. Nature takes a break every year, all that stuff. So I think that's how I would think about it.
I love that, Emma, and I think too, part of even you thinking back, one, I love the relation back to nature because, and I know you and your mom talk about that a lot too. It's so true. We kind of forget, like, I think especially in the world that we live in today, and I think especially with social media, you open it and it just feels like everyone is doing everything all the time. And you're like, how the heck do I feel like I'm like a healthy, energetic person? And I'm like, I can't. And I'm like, oh, because I'm a human being. Like, I need that time to recharge and like recalibrate and even just like redefine and reassess so that I can like go back and go forth and not be on all the time. But also drawing on like almost like past resilience, like that situation with the internship, it forced you to kind of be like, I don't have full certainty, but I have something's like firing up in my gut to be like, what is the worst that can happen? This feels like even if I can't see the puzzle, it's not fully illuminated. It's a piece of this puzzle that fits. Like I'll take the leap and see what happens. And like you said, even if that specific internship didn't provide you with all the tools for like your future careers or whatever the case may be, it did provide whatever that missing piece of that puzzle was. And so you're reminding that you have like the resilience to like make a decision and kind of go with it and be able to like flow with what comes up from it and know that it can work out even if it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and I feel like now that you're saying that and I'm thinking, I feel like everything in my life like kind of does and then to the point where like you were saying earlier, I'll say something like, "And I'm moving to go into Timbuktu and starting a dance company." Like people would be like, "Not surprised." That totally tracks. Makes sense.
And within that too, Emma, because it's like I feel there's something. My brother is a very, very, very tangible creative person. Like he can paint and he can draw and he can cook and like and I feel like I'm more of like a cerebral creative. Like besides cooking, I'm a very, very good cook, but like give me a piece of paper to draw something, it is bad. And it's been like that. And I think I've always been too much of a perfectionist to be, I'm like, this sucks. Like I know this sucks. It didn't feel like pleasurable for me to like try to get better. Where for him, he found so much pleasure in that. I feel like you're someone who again is like so interested and curious in so many different things. And you kind of woven those things into different businesses and passions that you have. If you kind of go back to 18, 20-year-old Emma and thinking about that's kind of an age where you're like starting to future focus a little bit and be like, okay, what is it that I think I want for my next season of my future or my whole future? And then we quickly realize, like, oh, just kidding. That shape shifts a lot. I guess how from the dream that you had then to where you are now, how has that evolved from what you thought you really wanted to do to, yeah, where you are now.
Also, 18 to 20, random age. Why 18?
Well, I feel like 18 is where you're leaving high school, right? And then 20, it's like you're in college. So I guess like 18 to 22, it's like that time where you're leaving your house, assuming you're leaving your house, and like starting to be like, oh shit, I'm starting like the first phases of adulthood where I actually have some freedom in my decision making. I feel like at that age too, which is so silly, but they're like, okay, like if you're going to go to college, like what are you going to major in? What do you want to do? Like there's all these things kind of for you trying to plan, like what do I think I'm going to want for this next course of my life? So that's why, yeah, 18 to 22. We'll make it like the
That's
full
so
college
funny. Because
gambit.
I feel like 18, me at 18, like really thought she had it all figured out. And then like when I think back, I'm like, because when I was 18, I think I thought I was going to be a teacher. And like I went to liberal arts school and I majored in American studies because I was like, well, I like American history and American lit. And like that's probably what I would teach, I guess. And I like kids. So maybe that confused me. But then like, wow, I really could never ever be a teacher. But what's funny about that is before that, like when I was like younger, I always wanted to perform and like be on Broadway. But then in high school, I just decided that that, like, wasn't a smart career move or whatever. Being a teacher made a lot more sense. I don't know. Maybe it was more like job security. Then I went to college and was like, I guess I'll just be a teacher. I don't think I thought about career that much in college. I think I just thought that was I didn't have to think that hard about it because I like kids and teaching, whatever. And then I did do a couple of I did like a student teaching thing. Then I was like, that sucked. And then I I love summer camp. So I could do camp. And then probably like honestly, I think that's where I'll end up when I'm like old lady. I'll be like directing a summer camp somewhere. It wasn't until after college when I was like in my mid 20s when I was like, I totally just like shut down the part of myself that wanted to be a performer because I thought it wasn't a smart career move, but like I'm gonna spend my whole life regretting if I don't like try. So then I spent my 20s with a lot of like hobbled together jobs doing a lot of the work that I feel like had I gone to school for performing arts, I would have like figured out in school, but I just kind of learned it in the world, like auditioning and building a book and all that stuff. And then COVID hit and sort of like put everything in a blender with all that and got me more interested in film because that's kind of all you could do. And then I got more interested. I kind of was putting all the pieces together like, oh, like if I'm a producer or if I like learn about production, which is conveniently just a big umbrella term for like everything that people will accept, then yeah, then maybe this will lead to something. And so I think that's where I am now. Like I can see things, I have like a vision for something. I'm good at pulling pieces together. I'm like a forest person, but also I can see little details in trees. And I think I've learned that I love like working with people and like I even love managing people and like I feel confident in building a business because I know how to like run teams and I love finding people that are really really good at what they do and just like letting them do it and I like bringing out stuff in people. So, yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but I just thought that was so funny because I haven't thought about 19-year-old me as she was clueless.
I think that's so fascinating, Emma. And I love that answer for multiple reasons. But what I think is fascinating about that is, in my experience, I feel like I personally had to do so much unraveling with like my self identity of like Maddie the actor, Maddie the performer. Like that was so intertwined with like who I thought I was and was like meant to be forever and ever and ever. That so much of my 20s was like, oh, yes, one slice of you is that, but you have all these other slices that are great. And you've kind of neglected them or rejected them because they felt like they were infringing on this identity that you held like so tightly. And I feel like a lot of my friends or peers that wanted to be actors or performers when they were young, that's also an experience to the point where now some of them even in their 30s, they're still working on that like untangling to be like, okay, my self-worth is not rooted in like if I book this job, what my resume says, like the professional aspects of me being a performer. And I think I've also seen that with some entrepreneurs as well, where again, their self-worth is in like their productivity or like what their bank account reflects, not really in like the experiences of, again, like some of them, I don't even know if they like what they're doing, so to speak, but like their identity is like me, entrepreneur, owning this business, whatever the case may be. So I love how much from an early age flexibility you had and like openness you had with yourself to be like, I don't know, not putting yourself in a box, but almost like opening up all these other boxes and being like, which one do I want to jump into?
Yeah. Which also leads to an identity crisis in another way, but it's okay.
I can imagine that because it's almost like you said, you're like, I have all of these skill sets and you're trying to find like ways to utilize them
Just
that like
somebody freaking pay me.
right. You're like, please, thank you so much. I can do, here's like the list of stuff I can do. You decide. That's, I think, the coolest part about performing is once you realize you have that flexibility and it's not like so attached to your identity, like you can perform your whole life. Like that's the beauty of it. It's not like playing a certain sport where you're like, I can only play this until I'm 45 and then like it'll have my knees go out. It's like you could literally perform
It's so true.
until the day you're not here anymore.
Also, if you love performing, I mean, the ones who are going through the identity crises we just explained will have a hard time with this one. But if you really love performing, like you can have as much fun and joy, life-giving experience like in a community theater production. To me, in my experience, sometimes even more. Like that is like some of the most meaningful stuff I've ever been a part of than when I've done the like professional like film set stuff. I don't know. It's just like you just gotta like do some soul searching and be like, what is it about this that I am like so attached to? And if it's like the human connection stuff, like you can find that anyway.
Totally. And I think to your point, and we all know, like one of my friends just made her first movie as a director and a writer, and I'm so freaking proud of her. She's amazing. And she always jokes like she gets these offers sometimes to do movies where she'd be directing and writing for someone else. And she's like, oh, just like the politics and the decision making. She's like, it is so like so stressful, so boring. Like it is not at all what like the point of what I wanted. So she does some of that to pay the bills, but then she's like, F it, I'm gonna use that money to like, yes, pay my bills, but like do my other shit where I actually get that. She's like, people might not see this movie. She's like, I don't care. Like I loved the process. I loved the whole point. But I think to that whole thing, she kind of had to unravel like, oh, I might not be this like savant that's premiering at Sundance. I might be, but I might not. I'm like, that's okay. I'm still gonna like, why am I doing this? Okay, I'm doing it for like a deeper impact for myself and storytelling rather than it needing to be some sort of like career accolade, 30 under 30 bullshit, whatever that we hear about. So super fascinating. I'm going to ask the last like big question and then we'll get into like some rapid outro questions. And I feel like so much of our conversation kind of ties into the idea of self-trust. So what's something you're learning to trust about yourself?
I'm also thinking about my therapist. We talked about this yesterday.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, serendipitous. Perfect. Your therapist sounds amazing, by the way.
She's great. Okay, I'll just say what we talked about in therapy. It's like there's two drivers that could be driving the car, and the one who's like usually in the driver's seat for me is like I just jump to the assumption that like I'm kind of dumb and I don't actually know what I'm talking about, and like it's this stupid and not gonna work. And like that's where a lot of like reactions and stuff comes from for me. And we just talked a little bit about like, I'm aware of that now. So it's taking it a step further and saying, okay, if you're aware of it, then you have to engage with that, like those like intrusive thoughts and being like, are you dumb? Like, show me evidence that you're dumb or whatever. And it's like, actually, no, when I think about it for a second, like, no, I'm not that dumb. I actually have some good ideas sometimes. And like, I know what I'm doing. And, you know, I've done enough at this point to like prove to myself, like, I can produce good work and I have good ideas. And so then, like, there's this other part of me that like really does like know all of that and can do stuff. And like, obviously, that's the version of me that like is like, yeah, I'll open this company and like, yeah, I can take on these clients. Like, totally. It's just like, that's not always the one that's in the driver's seat. So it's a practice of noticing when that other voice is in the driver's seat and like just being like, excuse me, you get in the back.
Get in the trunk, actually. Thank you.
Yeah, just get out.
You're not needed here.
Yeah, and like letting the other one drive. So something I'm actively working on.
And it is an active practice. What's so funny about that, Emma, is I'm currently in grad school for clinical mental health counseling. I'm in my second semester, so we're learning about theories. And literally before you and I got on today, in my theories class, we're learning about cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, which is like precisely what you're talking about, where it's like we have all these like core beliefs that like could totally be faulty logic. Like it could be from shit from our childhood or shit that's just like over time that we're like, I'm an idiot. I don't belong here. Like whatever. And those inform our like thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Like those beliefs are like now thoughts in our head, and then those thoughts make us feel a certain way, and then usually we behave based off of how we feel. And to your therapist's point, is so funny because in like the video of a session we watched, it's all about what taking action on that looks like. And in the video, they were even using like role playing. like role playing in the session where initially like the therapist will be like the nice version of you that's in the passenger seat and like you will first get the chance to be like that mean driver and then flip flop to kind of see like what does it look like to combat these negative intrusive thoughts that like are driving behaviors where like you're experiencing consequences that you don't want, like not taking those big swings, like not giving yourself permission to do certain things. So, yes. And I obviously, when we're learning about a lot of this, I think about myself and my own experience in therapy and how much of it is like, oh, yeah, like logging your thoughts. Like, when does this show up? And then choosing to be like, okay, now that I have awareness of it, how do I like combat it and like disrupt and dispute that thought to be like, I hear you, but here's like the actual truth or the actual belief that I'm gonna try to replace you with.
That's so cool. And
Yeah.
congrats.
Thank
So does that mean that
you.
you're going to be a therapist?
That's the goal. That's in like in our plot twist of identities, Emma. That is like something I always wanted to do it. And I was like, but I'm a performer. And then I went and got my coaching certification in 2020. And again, there's obviously many, many differences between coaching and therapy, but I was like, I think the whole time I really wanted to do this. And so this past summer, I had that like me to me conversation where I was like, what am I doing? Like, I can still do all the other things I want to do while doing this. And I was like, why don't I just try it? And if like I hate it after the first semester, I don't have to go back. Like, I'm not trapped in like making this one decision forever. I'm like, I could literally, but I was like, I will wake up 10 years from now being like, okay, I still want to do it. And I just wasted like 10 years of my life. So,
You know what I just want to say really quickly? I think we need to stop. We need to put a moratorium on the thing that people say all the time, especially in the like entertainment industry of like, what's the advice you would give someone who wants to do this? And they're always like, if there's anything else you could do that. Don't do this. I keep hearing that. I think I just heard that the other day on The Town. If you do you know that podcast with Matt Bellany?
yeah.
He interviewed a producer, which was a great episode. The producer of White Lotus
Okay. I
and
downloaded this episode and haven't listened yet. So, yes.
but yeah, he said that. And I was like, what is this? Is this like a Gen X thing? Like, I don't understand that. And I also think it's not helpful and it's like really discouraging. So we need to stop saying
Emma,
that.
I can't wait to listen to that episode now. I'm shook because I actually think that like when I was growing up, starting to like move from just like a hobby actor into like trying to be professional, I felt like I heard that shit all the time. And it was so like horrible. Like, cause I think that's why my identity was like Maddie, the actor and nothing else. Like if you have a plan B, you don't trust your plan A, like all that crap. And I feel like in more of the younger actors I see coming up, they do have more freedom and flexibility to like express themselves through creating things on social media or like just not being so afraid that every single thing, I don't know, is like either giving or taking away to them as a performer. That must be a Gen X thing. So I'm like, I hate that. And I feel like I've had to work so hard to combat that thinking. So I can't believe someone still brought it up. I'm like, what the heck? We're past that. Yes, let's get that out of here. Let's put that like in the grave.
I actually think it's the exact opposite. Like, if you want to be a performer, you have to be able to know how to do everything now. So
Truly, honestly.
sorry. Yeah.
Oh, Emma, this is so fun. Okay, these are our last like outro questions. You and I are both gabbers, so I'm like, we'll see how fast these go. What's the messiest thing about you?
Oh, probably I did see this earlier and there's a lot of things I could for share, but I think the one that does give me the most like oh is I'm really still bad with like calendar stuff. Like I've gotten better with my Google Calendar and like making sure everything's synced up and I do spend a lot more time, but like I will still somehow double book myself and that just feels so that's the one of the things that makes me that really like works up my like negative self-talk like you're so stupid how did
Yeah.
you do it?" So I don't know, it's really messy. My calendar is messy,
Okay.
but
I love
working
it.
on it.
Yeah. It sounds like you've already improved quite a bit. But yeah, that makes sense. You're balancing a lot of different things, so it makes sense. What are you most excited about right now, personally or professionally?
This is one. I love singing. I've always loved being like a singer performer and something that I feel like I've wanted to figure out is songwriting. And I've always kind of written it off as like, oh, I can't write songs. I don't know how to do that. I'm listening to Jeff Tweedy of Wilco. He wrote a book called Write One Song or How to Write a Song or something. And it's really kind of pumping me up to be like, hey, maybe I could like try songwriting. And it's a little bit of a journally, like creative exercise, but I think that's something that I'm excited about trying.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah,
We love that. I didn't know what you were gonna say, and I was very curious to see what you were gonna say, but I was like, "Oh, another, like, whole hobby. Another whole, like,
exactly.
beautiful hobby that will be,
Another
like,
skill
rewarding
set.
and challenging and a skill set." What are you still figuring out besides your calendar?
Everything. I think I no, but very specifically, and part of why I reached out to you initially is, like, I super wanna figure out my production company because obviously it's like, it's happening, I'm doing it, but in kind of the way that my therapist helped me think about it is, like, what if it was a company that I built and I, like, literally have people working for it, and I can enable myself to do a lot of really cool work that I wanna do. Something really moved the needle for me in that conversation because I went from feeling constrained by my own time and skills and being like, "Well, there's only so much I can do, and I know how to do a lot, but I don't know how to do everything," to being like, "You know what I can do? Like, I can find people who know how to do the stuff that I don't know how to do or don't wanna do, and then, like, make that work somehow." So, that's what I'm really excited about figuring out or what I'm figuring out, and maybe what I'm also really excited about.
I'm super excited for you too, Emma, because even when you told me about it, I'm like, "Ah," and what I know about you just makes so much sense combining some of, like, I don't know, with the again, your creativity and your entrepreneurial spirit, and I think even when you were describing the role you would inhabit if you went into corporate of, like, kind of being a leader of a team and being able to combine, like, the business elements with the creative elements, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that's, like, precisely what you would do with your business." It would just be you as, like, the full leader of it all and having people that help you build that vision, so I'm super excited for you.
Yeah, thank you.
We're gonna put everything in the show notes, but where can people come hang out with you, your podcast, your website, socials? Where can they get more of your awesome energy?
I would say the best place is my Lady Farmer socials. They're a little quiet right now, but they'll be more active. And then the Good Dirt podcast. The Lady Farmer socials are We Are Lady Farmer and the Good Dirt podcast, wherever you podcast. And then my personal social is Mary Emma Kingsley. Maybe there'll be a Bright Holler podcast sometime soon. Who knows?
I
We'll see.
love that idea. And you obviously have the skill sets to like make that happen tomorrow if you want to. Emma, this was so, so fun. Thank you for being a bright
So
spot
fun.
in my cold, dreary week so far. You're the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maddie.
You're the real hero if you've made it this far. Thanks so much for hanging out today, and check out the show notes for any resources or cool info mentioned in today's episode, or places to follow along if you want to hang out some more. I'm rooting for you today and always. Stay messy.